Welcome to the channel. The idea of learning more about Mars occupies many people's minds. Sometimes silence is louder than any signal. Especially when you're working with data coming from a planet where no one is supposed to be. Right? You agree? That's what Alex Reed, an image processing engineer at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, thought. Not a pilot, not a hero, just a man who cleans noise and artifacts from frames taken by a machine 225 million kilometers away from us. Every morning he opens the console, runs the filters, and before him appears, for example, Mars, cold, red, indifferent. But in recent weeks, that Mars had changed. It all began with a simple glitch. A regular photo, one of thousands taken by Curiosity, a section of sandy plain in the Cydonia region. Nothing special. But only in the 10th frame the shadow shifted. Not by a pixel, not due to lighting, it changed shape. He opened the neighboring frames, all stable. But this one, it was as if someone had walked by. Researchers often catch noise, it could be meteor dust, reflections, cosmic rays. But this shadow had a contour. Too clear. Too precise. He saved the frame under a standard name, as always, and marked it, for analysis. At that time, he didn't yet know this would be the beginning of something that would change his understanding of their work. A few days later, they were testing a new auto-scanning system. The algorithm was supposed to detect terrain anomalies, repeating shapes, symmetry lines, strange textures. Alex fed it old archives, starting from the Viking 1 and Viking 2 missions. Just to check how it recognized known structures. When the program reached the 1976 images, he noticed it stalled. The status bar froze on one file, Viking Cydonia 01.tiff. After a minute, a message popped up on the screen, high similarity detected, biological symmetry pattern/confidence, 68%. Alex smirked. That was the famous face on Mars. An optical illusion, studied through and through. But the algorithm didn't know the context, it just compared shapes. And it found a pattern. The engineer wanted to delete the result but couldn't bring himself to do it. Maybe because, at that moment, he saw that face not as a myth but as something very real. In high resolution, cleaned of noise, it actually looked alive. Not a rock. Not just a mountain ridge. Something that suggested intent. He stared at the screen for a long time. It seemed as if the face slightly changed, as though beneath the surface there was a layer someone tried to hide. That same day Alex received an internal email. The Data Security Department reminds you that the processing of archival images is permitted only within approved projects. Unauthorized analysis or storage of copies is prohibited. He didn't discuss it with colleagues. He simply copied the archive to his personal server, naming it innocently, Project Symmetry. A few days later he decided to run the latest Curiosity photos through the same algorithm. It again found biological symmetry, but this time in an image from 2024. In the center of the frame, a rock half covered in dust. At first glance, ordinary. But the program outlined its contour in green and displayed a label, cranial pattern detected. Possible skull formation. He zoomed in. The outlines matched the proportions of a human skull. Even the shadows aligned with the shape of eye sockets. Alex knew it was pareidolia. He had to know. But the longer he looked, the more he convinced himself this wasn't just a trick of the light. That evening he stayed in the lab alone. Outside, the air conditioners hummed, somewhere relays clicked in the servers. On the screen, the frozen Martian landscape. And then he noticed for the first time, beneath the dust, slightly left of the skull, there was a thin line, as if a trail left by something heavy crawling across the sand. Alex decided to check old logs. In 2005 the Spirit rover had already recorded a similar object. NASA officially stated it was just a rock. But he opened the original and compared it with the current image. Shape match, 93%. They were identical. 15 years apart. Different locations. Different cameras. But the same shape, the same shadow, the same direction. He didn't know what to think. If it was just a rock, how could it appear somewhere else years later? He looked again at the file, Sol 1432 frame 07 raw. Now he saw not just a shadow, but a figure standing behind the rover. It seemed to have stepped into the frame at the very moment the shot was taken. The next day Alex got a call from the security department. The voice was calm but too formal. "We wanted to clarify," the man said, "did you process any unapproved data packets yesterday?" Alex lied, said it must have been a mistake. The voice paused, then added, "Then do not open anything else from the Cydonia archive. That's above your clearance level." And the connection cut off. At that moment Alex realized someone was monitoring his queries. The engineer's name was Alex Reed. 38 years old, twice involved in NASA missions, a quiet, withdrawn man. In the department, he was considered almost a fanatic. He rarely went home before midnight and often slept right in the chair before his monitors. They said he lived on Mars. In the past few days, Alex had barely spoken to anyone. He was working on reports about the Curiosity rover's routes, but his thoughts kept returning to that image, Sol 1432 frame 07 raw. He tried to convince himself it was just a shooting error, that the figure behind the rover was a glare, a sensor defect, anything. But at night, when he opened the frame again and again, the feeling of presence became almost physical. On the morning of February 9, a report came into the center from the Deep Space Network antenna. On the spectrogram, along with the usual noise, appeared a short pulse that hadn't been present in any previous data packet. At first they thought it was interference, perhaps an echo of their own commands reflected by Mars's ionosphere. But analysis showed, the frequency didn't match any of Curiosity's operational ranges. The pulse repeated every 37 seconds. And something in it resembled a speech structure. Alex noticed it first. He ran the signal through an audio filter, stretched it over time. The sound became like breathing, uneven, broken, as if someone were trying to speak, but through water. In the spectrum appeared something that resembled words. He distinguished 3 sounds, and recoiled from the monitor. His colleagues, of course, wouldn't have believed him. They already joked about his phantom shapes in images. So he said nothing. He simply saved the file under a harmless name, Test Signal 09 Wave, and moved it to a personal drive. A few days later, Alex arrived earlier than everyone. The building was silent, only the servers hummed. He connected his laptop to the terminal and launched an old signal visualization program. On the screen appeared a thin line stretching to the right, the usual noise amplitude. But after a minute it changed. The shape began forming symbols. At first they looked like random oscillations, but gradually they took shape into something familiar, the outline of a human face. The lines pulsed in rhythm with the noise, as if they were speaking. Alex froze. For a moment it seemed the face was looking straight at him. He turned the program off. Later, browsing through the archives, he noticed that this signal had been detected once before. In 1976, in the logs of the Viking 1 mission, there was a note about an anomalous surface response, identical in frequency and duration. At the time, it had been written off as an internal radio module glitch. But now the match was exact, down to the millisecond. On the night of February 14, Alex stayed alone. Security was gone, the lights in the hallway were out. He opened that same image again, Sol 1432 frame 07 RAW. It showed a plane, rocks, the rover. But now, under deeper filtering, something appeared that hadn't been there before. Behind the rover, in the distance, a light reflection, as if from a metallic surface. He zoomed in. Around the light appeared something resembling the outline of a figure in a spacesuit. Alex froze. His breath became uneven, his hand trembled on the mouse. He switched the display to thermal spectrum mode. Of course, there were no actual temperature readings, the image didn't transmit heat data. But the reconstruction algorithm highlighted shades by pixel brightness. And the figure warmed. That was impossible. The next morning, Alex discovered that access to the Project Symmetry server was closed. All copies of the files had disappeared, including the signals, reports, photographs. In their place, a short system notice, files deleted by order of the security department. Reason, protocol violation. He tried logging in under another account, but the system refused. A few hours later, he was summoned to the mission supervisor's office, Dr. Reyes. A tall man with graying temples met him with a strained smile. "Alex," he said without lifting his eyes from the papers, "you know that access to restricted data is regulated by the security protocol?" "Yes, sir," Reed replied. "Then why did you copy the Cydonia archive?" He was silent. "We all understand that you're passionate about your work," Reyes continued, "but sometimes enthusiasm crosses boundaries." He paused, then added quietly, "Don't dig where you shouldn't." That evening, when Alex returned home, he turned on his laptop. He was sure all files had been erased, but when the system booted, a new window flashed on the screen, Cydonia recovered/restricted access. He hadn't created that folder. Inside, a single file. A video. Unknown format, but the system still opened it. On the screen, a shaky image from the rover's camera. At first, just landscape, red desert, sand, dunes. Then, movement. In the frame appeared someone's shadow. It moved toward the rover, growing larger. For a split second, something resembling a gloved hand reaching toward the lens. The frame went dark. The file lasted exactly 37 seconds, the same interval as those pulses in the signal. Alex sat in the dark, staring at the frozen screen. The speakers crackled softly, remnants of the signal. And amid that crackling, he heard the same breathing again, a faint voice saying, "Cydonia." But now there were other sounds too, barely distinguishable words. He couldn't be sure, but he thought he heard, "We see you." At that moment, the lights in his apartment went out. The laptop screen flared white. And across the frozen frame appeared a line, "Connection established." When the words, "Connection established," appeared on his laptop screen, Alex froze. A second earlier, the apartment had been plunged into darkness, only the glow from the monitor filled the room with a cold light. He could hear the transformer humming behind the wall, the distant sound of a car passing somewhere outside. But inside, dead silence. Slowly, he raised his hand to the keyboard to cut the power, and at that moment the speakers made a sharp click, as if someone had just connected a microphone. A new window appeared on the screen. In the title bar, a single word, Relay-76. Below it, a line of coordinates Alex recognized immediately, 22 degrees north, 13 degrees west, Cydonia region. These coordinates belonged to an old transmitter that had been used back in the days of the Viking 1 mission. It had been decommissioned almost 50 years ago. No modern antenna should have been sending signals from there. Alex opened the mission archive. The Relay-76 transmitter really had existed, a temporary relay unit installed for communication with the orbital module. The last recorded transmission was in December 1976. After that, the equipment had been considered lost. Dust, radiation, Martian winds had done their work. But now the log showed a new update, activity detected, September 2, 2025, UTC 237. Alex enlarged the entry. The signal repeated every 37 seconds, the same rhythm he had heard before. In the spectrum appeared bursts resembling code, a sequence of short and long pulses. He converted the sequence into binary format and ran it through a decoder. The result stunned him. The pulses formed a single word, hello. A simple, ordinary human hello. But each letter was accompanied by a timestamp, and when Alex checked them, he saw they were the exact dates of every Mars mission launch. 1976, 1997, 2004, 2012, 2020. Every time a new craft had arrived on the planet, someone, or something, had answered from there. The next day, Alex tried to speak with Reyes, but his supervisor wasn't in the building. He was told that the doctor had taken personal leave. When Alex checked the internal staff directory, Reyes's name had disappeared from the list. That evening, back in the lab, Alex found an email in his inbox with no sender. The address field was blank. Subject, Analog 1976. Inside, a link to a NASA internal server. Alex opened it, expecting another access block. But the system let him in. A video appeared on the screen. Black and white film, old format, no date. The footage showed a laboratory much like the one he worked in, people in white coats, monitors, oscilloscopes. At the center of the table, a metal box with antennas. On the nameplate was engraved, Viking Relay-76, prototype. The camera zoomed in. One of the engineers was saying something, but there was no sound. Then the screen went dark, and a line appeared, test successful. Signal received. And below, a handwritten signature, clearly visible in reflection, A. Reyes. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. His supervisor had worked on this project almost half a century ago. But according to the database, Reyes was listed as 48 years old. He began searching for any references to Relay-76. Most links had been deleted, but in one old Viking mission report he found a brief note. December 12, 1976, a response signal detected, inconsistent with own transmissions. Shows signs of artificial origin. Forwarded to the Security Division for further analysis. Below, a blank space, as if the lines had been cut out. Alex typed a recovery request for deleted data. The program displayed a warning, intrusion detected. Data encrypted by user Relay-76. He tried to decrypt the file manually. The code was simple, substitution by date key. When he entered September 2, 2025, the text opened. It contained only one sentence: they never left. That night, Alex played the same audio file again. The signal had grown stronger, now it sounded louder, as if someone had moved closer. He put on his headphones and turned the volume to maximum. At first, only noise, static, breathing. Then, words, almost intelligible. The voice was hoarse, distorted, as if speaking through an old radio transmitter, relay working. "We are here." Alex gripped the edge of the table. "Listen. We're the ones who built. They don't know. Mars remembers." The recording cut off with a shriek, and the monitor went dark. He tore off the headphones, gasping for air. His heart pounded. He wanted to dismiss it all as exhaustion, as system noise, but deep down he knew, this was not an error. 2 days later, Alex returned to the lab. At the entrance, the guards let him through, but his badge triggered a strange reaction. The guard looked at the screen, then at him, and said, "Your access is inactive. This card is revoked." Alex froze. "What do you mean, revoked? It says here you were terminated on February 10th. He left the building without a word. That evening, he made the final entry in his personal journal: "If anyone ever finds these records, check the Relay-76 transmitter. It's active. Someone is answering. I don't know who they are, humans, machines, or something else. But the connection is established. And it seems they've been waiting for us for a long time." He pressed save. And at that very moment, the laptop overwrote the file with a new title: Relay-76 Connected Log. On the screen, the familiar words flashed once more. Connection established. The last 3 days had blurred into a single, continuous stream: archives, frequencies, codes, meaningless numbers scribbled on scraps of paper. He could no longer tell what was real and what was just the product of exhaustion. But one thing he knew for certain: the connection was real. It wasn't an accident. On the night of February 17th, he returned to the control center, using the maintenance entrance through the hangar. His pass had indeed been revoked, but the security system, ironically, hadn't been updated since the last mission. That meant the old code still worked. The server hall was empty. Only the hum of the fans, the glow of the lamps, the trembling of the floor beneath the processors. He connected his laptop to the network and launched the offline console. On the screen, a message flashed. Relay-76, connection active. Alex opened the audio channel and unmuted his mic. His voice trembled, but he managed to say, "This is Engineer Alex Reed, NASA Control Station. Do you hear me?" No response, only faint static, like wind breathing across sand. He repeated, "Who are you?" Pause. Then, a short pulse. Another. From the speakers came a distorted sound, as if someone were slowly shaping words. "We hear you. Alex froze. His breath caught. He automatically hit record. Who are we, asterisk, he asked. Identify yourselves. The noise grew stronger. Within it, like shadows beneath ripples, voices began to emerge. Not male or female, just voices, blending into an indistinct chorus. From that chaos, one word surfaced: remain. The signal was traveling along a strange path, not directly from Mars's surface, but through some kind of reflection, as if bouncing off a mirror. Alex initiated triangulation. The computer pinpointed the source beneath the surface, about 2 kilometers below the Cydonia region. But the reflection didn't come from rock or ice. It came from a metallic structure. He remembered an old Viking mission report: anomalous relief, likely geological formations. No one paid attention back then. Now, everything was different. In his headphones, the whisper returned, closer this time, clearer. We see new light coming. You opened the door. Alex stood up, feeling the air grow heavy, electric. Who are you? He shouted. What are you? The answer didn't come immediately. A string of numbers flickered on the monitor. Coordinates, the same as Relay-76, but shifted several hundred meters. The point lay directly beneath the plateau where the face on Mars was located. Do you remember us? We are the Echo. The word echo rang in his mind like metal striking glass. Then the computer, on its own, opened a new directory. File 0/primary sequence. Inside, a short video file. He played it. First, static, then an image. A camera flying over the Martian surface, closing in on ancient ruins. But the ruins were too symmetrical to be natural: smooth walls, massive domes, lines vanishing beneath the sand. Then, a sudden shift. The frame shook. A human face appeared. No, not a face, but its imitation. Pale, as if carved from dust, with hollow eyes. It moved its lips silently: "We've been waiting for you." The screen went black. Alex couldn't remember how he ran out of the lab. When he came to, he was standing in the parking lot, clutching a flash drive in his hand. The sky above Los Angeles was turning red with dawn. He tried to power up his laptop: nothing. The screen stayed black, flashing the same message every few seconds. Relay-76 transmitting. He took the flash drive home, inserted it into another computer: empty. No files. Nothing. That night, he dreamed of Mars. A silent desert. The rovers stood motionless, like fossilized insects. And among them, under the thin whisper of wind, figures walked. Shapes in dusty suits, each with a blank face, his own. They looked upward. Above them, in the dark sky, a small blue dot. Earth. And they all spoke in unison. You heard us. Now, you are one of us. Alex woke with a scream. On the wall, glowing faintly from the streetlight, were the same numbers, the coordinates. The next day, he went to see his old colleague, astrophysicist Jordan Lee, and showed him the printed spectrograms. Lee studied them for a long time, then finally said, "These aren't random distortions. This is structured modulation. Someone really is responding." But who? Alex asked. If you want my opinion, Lee replied, looking him straight in the eye, it's not aliens. He paused. It's us. Just, not from this time. Alex stared at him. What do you mean? Every mission, every transmission leaves a temporal imprint, Lee continued. Radio waves can bend, scatter, reflect, even across time. Maybe Relay-76 became a resonator. It's not linking planets, it's linking moments. So, I was talking to the past. Or the future. Makes no difference. Lee leaned back in his chair. The real question isn't who's on the other side. The question is, what did you tell them? That night, Alex activated the console again. The signal no longer required connection, it was always on. On the screen appeared a short message. Transfer initiated. In the speakers, breathing, whispering, then a clear voice, eerily similar to his own, Alex? Is that you? We've been waiting. He leaned closer. The noise intensified. A pulsing light filled the room, and for a brief second, everything around him, the walls, the monitor, even the air, turned translucent, like ripples across water. The last thing he heard was, Relay-76 is open. None of the surveillance systems had recorded any activity from Alex Reed. His car was still parked outside the center, the keys left in the ignition. On the monitor of the service terminal where he had last worked, only one file remained, log 76txt. Security opened it, expecting to find a report or system record. But the document contained no dates, no coordinates. Only phrases, as if cut out from a dream. The file ended abruptly. But right after it, another one, hidden deep in the system directory. An audio log, exactly 7 minutes and 12 seconds long. When the specialists played it, the speakers emitted a rhythmic crackle, like a heartbeat. Then, faint, distorted words, as if voices had traveled through thousands of kilometers of static. Alex, coordinates received. Transfer complete. Then, a sharp burst of noise. And what everyone who had heard the recording later described the same way, a human breath. A week after the engineer's disappearance, Curiosity sent back new photos. Ordinary shots of dunes and craters, nothing unusual. Except for one detail. On frame C-1250, in the lower left corner, in the shadow of a rock, a silhouette was visible. A figure in a spacesuit. On the helmet, a faint reflection of sunlight. On the chest, a NASA emblem. And next to it, on the sand, a footprint. Ancient, as if it had been there for decades. NASA made no comment on the image. The file vanished from the public archive within 24 hours, but not before it leaked. Thousands of users around the world began to examine the frame, enhance the contrast, search for a shadow, a face, a helmet. Each saw something different. Some, just a rock. Others, a figure raising its hand. And somewhere deep in the internet, an audio file appeared. Its name was simple, Session Complete Wave. If you play it at maximum volume, you can hear the sound of the wind. And at the 3:47 mark, a voice. Quiet, barely audible, as if coming from another room. Connection established.